Have you ever had one of those days where it feels like you're just putting out fires, totally controlled by your schedule instead of the other way around? It's just frustrating, right? Well, today, we're going to walk through a really clear framework to help you stop feeling so overwhelmed and start feeling genuinely productive. You know the feeling? You've been rushing around, your to-do list is a mile long, and when you finally collapse at the end of the day, you're exhausted. But you can't point to one single meaningful thing you actually finished. It's this maddening cycle. So what if the problem isn't that you're not working hard enough, but that you just don't have the right strategy? Okay, this quote is a total game changer. Psychologists like Dr. Tim Petchel argue that when we procrastinate, it's not really about being lazy or bad at managing time. It's actually an emotional reaction. We're trying to avoid a bad feeling, like the boredom of a task or the anxiety or even just self-doubt. Putting it off gives us this little short-term mood boost. And this emotional avoidance often leads us straight into a classic trap, especially if you're a student. It's what Dr. Elizabeth Bjork calls the illusion of competence. Think about it. You reread your notes over and over. It feels productive because the words start to look familiar. But here's the catch. That feeling of fluency is totally misleading. It's not the same as actually knowing the material. It's why that all-night cram session almost never works. You feel super busy, but you're not really learning. So how do we break this cycle for good? Well, we're going to tackle this in 5 key steps. First, we'll look at that busyness illusion. Then we'll figure out where your time actually goes. After that, we'll talk strategy, how to choose your battles. Then we'll get practical and architect a day built for focus. And finally, we'll talk about how you can take back your time on your own terms.
All right, first things first, the diagnosis. We can't really get a handle on our time until we have a crystal clear picture of where it's all going. And this means we've got to be brutally honest with ourselves.
Get ready for this. A study cited by Hubstaff found a pretty shocking statistic. For a lot of us, over 30% of the work week is just gone, eaten up by low-value, time-wasting activities. Think about that for a second. That's more than a full day of work every single week, just evaporating into things that don't help you reach your goals. So the number one tool to fight this is something called a time audit. It's super simple, really. You just track everything you do for about a week. This isn't about judging yourself, not at all. It's just about gathering data. You can't fix a leak if you don't know where the water's coming from. So here's how you do it. For 1 week, just log what you're doing and be specific. Then start grouping those things into categories like focused study time, admin stuff, social media, breaks, whatever makes sense for you. At the end of the week, take a look. I promise you'll be surprised, maybe even shocked, at where your time is really going. Okay, so now you've got this raw data from your audit. It's time to build a strategy. This is all about learning to work smarter, not just harder. So the key here is to really get the difference between urgent tasks and important tasks. Urgent things are screaming for your attention right now, like an assignment that's due tomorrow. But important things are what actually contribute to your long-term success, like planning out a big research paper or reviewing your notes week by week. It is so easy to get stuck in what feels urgent and completely neglect what's truly important. And this is where the Eisenhower Matrix is an absolute lifesaver. It's way more than a to-do list. It's a decision-making tool. Quadrant 1, urgent and important. That's for the fires you have to put out. But the real secret to getting ahead and feeling in control is Quadrant 2. Important, but not urgent. This is where you schedule time for that deep, focused work, for planning. The more time you can spend here, proactively, the fewer crises are going to pop up in Quadrant 1. It's how you break the cycle of stress. And here's another awesome mental model to help you strategize. It's called the Pareto Principle, but most people know it as the 80-20 rule. And the idea is simple. In almost anything, a huge chunk of your results, like 80%, comes from a tiny fraction of your effort. Maybe just 20%. Your big challenge is to figure out what your 20% is. If you're a student, maybe it's focusing on the 3 core concepts that are almost guaranteed to be on the final exam. If you're working, it might be that one key client call that unlocks a whole project. Once you identify those high-impact tasks, you can pour your energy into them and stop wasting so much effort on the other 80% that yields very little. Okay, so we've got our data, we've got our strategy. Now for the really fun part, building a concrete plan. This is how we go from knowing what to do to creating a structure where it actually gets done. First, let's talk about a concept from the author Cal Newport, deep work versus shallow work. Deep work is when you're in the zone, totally focused, no distractions, creating your best stuff, like writing a paper or coding a difficult feature.
Shallow work is all the other little things, answering emails, scheduling meetings, running errands. Here's the thing, our entire world is basically designed to pull us into shallow work. So we have to be intentional and design our days for the deep stuff.
And the best way to do that is with time blocking. Instead of having a vague to-do list that you just kind of chip away at, you give every single minute of your day a job. You put it on your calendar. You're not just saying what you need to do, you're deciding when you're going to do it. It's a simple shift, but it's incredibly powerful. It's how some of the most productive people on the planet manage their time. If it's on the calendar, it happens.
So how do you actually build one of these schedules? Well, here's a super simple guide from Seattle Pacific University. Start with the absolute non-negotiables: sleep, meals. Then put in your fixed commitments, things like classes or your work schedule. Next, and this is the most important part, you schedule protected blocks of time for your deep work. And finally, you have to schedule time for rejuvenation. I'm serious. Exercise, hobbies, seeing friends. That isn't a luxury, it's essential for staying sharp and avoiding burnout.
Now, if you want to make those deep work blocks even more powerful, try using the Pomodoro technique. You just work with intense focus for 25 minutes, then you take a short 5-minute break. This little trick is amazing because it prevents you from getting mentally fried. It breaks down huge, intimidating projects into these small, manageable chunks, which makes it so much easier to just start and stay focused.
Wow, okay, we've covered a lot, from the psychology behind why we procrastinate all the way to a blueprint for planning out your entire week. So let's just pause for a second and bring this all home with a clear, actionable plan.
Here's your whole plan boiled down to 3 simple steps. First, you diagnose. You do a time audit to see where your time is really going. Second, you strategize. You use tools like the Eisenhower Matrix and the 80-20 rule to figure out what actually matters. And third, you plan. You use time blocking to make a concrete schedule that protects time for that deep, meaningful work.
Look, at the end of the day, this is all about shifting from a reactive life to a proactive one. You really are the architect of your day. You have the power to design a life and a schedule around what's truly important to you. It's not about magically finding more time, it's about making your time count.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Imagine your day as an empty jar. Your tasks are rocks, pebbles, and sand. If you put the sand in first, the big rocks will never fit. You have to put the big rocks, your most important tasks, in first. So, as you look at the 24 hours you have tomorrow, what's the one big rock you're going to put in your jar first? Decide on that tonight and build your entire day around it.